Generosity breeds generosity. Do you agree with that? A few years back, there was a news story about a fast food drive-through lane where the person decided they were going to pay for the person behind them. And that person whose meal was paid for decided they were going to pay for the person behind them and behind them and it kept going. And before too long, there was a chain of people that had all paid for each other's meals. Now, this was a simple act of generosity, and they were going to buy a meal for themselves there anyways. But generosity breeds generosity. Because the first person in that car paid for the person behind them. The thankfulness that they felt for that gift caused them to pay for the person behind them too. That's why generosity breeds generosity. Because generosity produces in somebody else a heart of thankfulness. When you are generous to somebody, they are thankful for your generosity towards them. And that thankfulness is what produces generosity in us. This is biblical. This is how God talks about generosity. This is how he talks about how this all works. And we can take it all the way back to the most valuable thing that God gave to us in his son, Jesus. He gave up his own son for us. He was extremely generous in doing just that, in sending his son for the salvation of the world. And that produces in us thankfulness. We are thankful to God for the things that he has done for us, that he takes care of us, that he provides for us, and that he gave us his only son to die on the cross for our sins so that heaven might be ours. He was extremely generous to us, and that wells up in us a heart of thankfulness. And that heart of thankfulness produces generosity in our lives too. And so we want to be generous people. We want to be generous to other people because God has been generous to us, because we are extremely thankful for the things that God has given us. This is a verse from Psalm 107, verse 1. You might recognize it because it's, for a lot of people, what you pray before you have a meal. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. We thank the Lord for who he is and what he does. It says, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. We give thanks to the Lord because of who he is, because he is our loving God, because he is our creator God, because his hand is over all that exists, because he is a God of love and truth and justice. Because of these characteristics in our God, we have thankfulness in our heart, and that thankfulness produces generosity. And we thank God for what he has done. It says his love endures forever. We see his love in action. He is love in himself. He embodies love. In the letter of 1 John, it says that God is love, but we see his love, we see this characteristic of love that he has in his actions towards us. None bigger than Jesus on the cross, that he was willing to give up his own son. This is where we see the love of God in its highest form, that he gave up his own son for the salvation of the world. God has been extremely generous to us, and that produces thankfulness in our hearts. We give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever, and that thankfulness is not without effect in our lives. It inspires and motivates our godly living. It inspires and motivates us to be incredibly generous to people around us. And we're also reminded that generosity that we show towards others produces thankfulness, which in turn produces generosity. This generosity is contagious. So let's start the chain here. Let's be incredibly generous to people in our lives and see this generosity pass from one person to the next.